In addition to the incredible work that you've done on screen and on the stage, you're also a writer. And when you're working on a project where you're solely just acting, what was it that you look for in the script? What was it about Tyler's words that resonated with you?
I think the main thing for me is it's not just like a jump scare movie. It's not like a horror movie where people are just getting stabbed for no reason. There's a metaphor, and the
Mhm.
metaphor is mental health. And so the monster without is actually the monster within, and I think that's a really poignant thing to discuss through a genre that people sort of watch to feel their pulse quicken. And so I think similarly to comedy, I think comedy opens people's hearts so
Yeah.
that the message can be slipped in. I think the same thing with this genre because you are disarmed because your body goes like, "Ugh," and then there in some ways you're better able to absorb what you're being fed,
Mm.
and I think in this case it's a beautiful cinematic movie that takes its time. I think it's
Yeah.
so written. I think, and I'm not talking about myself, but I think it's really well acted. Um, so and now this particular character that I play has been through so much and yet manages to show up for her children in a really meaningful
Hmm.
way. And the heartbreak of a mother who lost her husband and is watching her children suffer is a multi-dimensional character that I think exists more than we realize in this world. I think we are in a mental health crisis right now in our
Yeah.
culture. I have a lot of theories as to why, but I think there are more mothers than not who are worried about their children right now.
You've described motherhood as beautiful, terrifying, and relentless, where all you want to do is protect your children. And sometimes that does mean lying. But like you were just saying, when you're portraying a character whose family is battling grief and trauma head on, and she's trying to shield her children from that pain, but isn't always able to. How do you create that emotional space for yourself to explore that vulnerability? Because as an audience member, you immediately feel for all of these characters.
First of all, Kevin, thank you for listening to my show.
Man, it's fantastic. I laughed, I cried listening to it.
That means so much to me. And for you to like remember that specific thing, I really appreciate you. And I really appreciate you listening and remembering and bringing it up. That makes me feel emotional. Thank you. I was a very anxious child, and it's still something I deal with in life. It's something I was saying earlier to a different journalist that when you have anxiety, it never goes away. It's always
Mm,
just there. And sometimes it's louder than other times. But it's like learning to live with it. We cannot get away from it. You can't throw the shade in the garbage. It's not happening. But it'll be smaller and smaller and smaller. And how do you keep it right sized? You know? So for me, tapping into the feelings of when I did not know how to make it smaller. I did not know how to make it quieter. The anxiety of that, the panic of that, the fight or flight of that, it does feel like you're in a horror movie. And so I tapped into those feelings, which is not a delight to do, but in some ways can be cathartic,
yeah.
for the actor and then also hopefully for the viewer.
Hmm. And, speaking of that special too, you also share this beautiful anecdote that, it's not your children's job to like you all the time. And it's one of your privileges as a mother to give without expectation and to be able to hear, I hate you and say, I love you, which feels like such a perfect way to describe that dynamic between your character and her son, Ryan, where that relationship is so rooted in love, but there's so much push and pull throughout the film. What was it like getting to work with Chris to explore that contrast and build that trust that's needed between the two of you, particularly in that scene about halfway through the film where she checks in on him?
It's funny. Chris and I did not get a lot of time together. We had maybe
Hmm.
2 or 3 days together. So there wasn't a lot of time for trust building. And in a way, I think that was good. I think the fragility of their relationship was very clear. I'm hopeful that the love I feel was clear, but his sort of inability to let that love in. I think in some ways it was best that we didn't have a lot of
Yeah.
time to be like super bonded, you know? But yeah, I really don't. I think there are more mothers than not who are very deeply worried about their children right now.
Tyler co-wrote and directed this project. How different is that filming experience when the person who's created this narrative and these characters is also at the helm directing? What was it like working with him?
He's a joy. I mean, to be on a scary movie with a director and writer who's just like a delight is really nice. And frankly, it's a relief to have the director and be the writer. They know exactly what they want. I would so much rather have a director be like, this is what I want, than be guessing and them sort of also figuring it out and then them talking to the writer, but then they're interpreting what the writer said and maybe they interpreted it wrong. I really I really enjoyed working with him and the clarity that he had.
Speaking of that collaboration, there's such an interesting discussion that's happening right now about the dichotomy between drawing from your lived experiences, but also stepping into this world of make believe. And I think Tyler does such a fantastic job capturing the maternal bond between your character and her three sons. But there's also so many nuances to those relationships. And I know you're in this era right now about taking agency. How are you able to take agency over your character and fuse your own experiences with motherhood into Renee and bring that authenticity to screen?
Your questions are so good. I want you to know that not all interviews are conducted this way, and you're really good at your job, and I appreciate you.
Appreciate you as well.
Um, Thank you. So, every actor has a different path. Every actor has a different way into a character. And I think we love as human beings to judge other people's way of doing everything. I think, especially with the internet, like everybody knows the right way, everybody has the hack, everybody has the secret. And there is no one right way to do anything. So, I might approach things very differently than another actor. Like, I need to take time. I'm not one of those people who's like laughing and joking and then they're like action and I'm sobbing. I need to go into a different space and meditate. I need to, you know, tap into the parts of me that are willing to exorcise themselves.
Mm,
Um, I'm not like in character all the time. I'm not method, like I have lunch with everybody and laugh and talk, but as actors, it's like it's our job. It is our job to be malleable and to be chameleons. And it's an honor that we get to do that.
mhm. And I think that the connection that you have to your characters is why we get so many great performances throughout your career. And I think one of the beautiful things about film and art also is its ability to make audiences feel less alone. You touched upon the importance of talking about mental health. And through this film and your special Nobody Cares, it's starting a lot of really necessary conversations about topics that historically may have been very taboo. Why has it been so important to you as a storyteller to bring that awareness throughout your career?
Hmm. I don't know if you've heard the phrase, we're only as sick as our secrets.
Mm,
I think we are a shame-based society.
yeah.
And I think out of that shame comes behavior that we are not ultimately proud of. Like, I think almost all of us want to do well. No, I don't mean be successful and rich. I mean, we want to be good. You know, I and I do think, especially in this sort of social media age, of everyone presenting themselves um, in a way that is completely curated,
Mhm.
uh, especially when it comes to young people, that is dangerous. And so for me, moving beyond mystique, moving beyond what we are supposed to talk about, moving beyond things that make me feel shame. For a very long time, I felt a lot of shame about having multiple marriages. I felt a lot of shame. And in talking about it in such a humorous way, I got to sort of wring it out,
Yeah.
you know, and gain a lot of acceptance for myself. And through that acceptance, I've always been empathetic, but I've grown even more empathetic and more importantly, accepting of other people and their choices. And I've really come to a point now where I'm trying to learn to be myself without expectation.
Mm,
So, I can put myself out there about a miscarriage and not expect anyone to respond in any particular way. And mostly it's because I don't want people to feel alone because I have felt alone in these things.
mm.
So if there's any way in which I can use my small platform, my small level of being, a public person, if I can use any of that to make people feel less alone, then that's what I want to do.
You're not giving yourself enough credit. The transparency that you brought throughout your performances, throughout your career, especially with that special as well, is just so refreshing that you don't see this so often. So to follow up on that, I know as an artist, you often want audiences to take what they will from different scripts and performances. But what did you take away from this experience?
I'm like very afraid. I'm like very scared of films like this. It's not my genre because I feel it deeply and because it like the darkness of it
Mm,
really affects me. So for me, finding the internal resilience, frankly, to remember that this is pretend, even given the important subject matter that is not pretend, which is mental health, to be able to create some distance and boundary for myself between pretend and where I am in my life right now. So I do think this was an opportunity for me to be a part of something I wouldn't normally participate in because I was so drawn to the script and what it said. It was also an opportunity for me to be like, ma'am, you are a grown up and this is pretend and you're going to be okay. And you can go home and release this and not carry it around.
yeah, that's such an important lesson about stepping outside of your comfort zone. And I think there are parts of filmmaking that are supposed to be entertainment, but then there are these rare films that are going to have lasting impacts on audiences. And I feel like this is one of them. Thank you so much for taking
Thank
time out of
you.
your day
Oh,
to chat with. Congratulations on this fantastic performance and all the success that you have. And I hope we get an opportunity to chat again in the future.
me too. Me too. I really appreciate you.